Ka ha na-akọrịta maka ihe ndị a, na-achịgharị ya n'ime uche ha, na-ajụ ajụjụ, na-eche echiche, Jesu n'onwe ya bịara nọnyere ha, soro ha na-aga ije, wee jụọ ha kedu ihe unu na-akọ maka ya. Otuto dịrị Jesu. In Luke's Gospel this morning, we are still on Easter Day. The story being told is the story of what happened on that first day of the week. No to ụbọchị ahụ. First Sunday of Easter, second Sunday of Easter, third Sunday of Easter. Ufu akụkọ ahụ. The same story. The story of the greatest event in human history. Beyond comprehension. Ofu ihe mere n'ụwa karịrị uche mmadụ nghọta. Bụrụgodu ndị akwadobere maka ya. Nke mbụ, site n'akụkọ nna ha na ha eji eferide Chukwu ndị amụma na-akọwa ha. From the prophets and their religious history, this group of people was prepared. In addition, they were the disciples of Jesus. Ha bụ ndị na-eso ụzọ nke Jesu. Mana mgbe o mere okweghị ha nghọta. When it happened, they couldn't understand. Ashi Jerusalem na-ejewen Emmaus. Ofu obere obodo a na-akpọ Emmaus. I've told you this before. If you do a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, you will go to Jerusalem. They will show you Bethany, Bethlehem, Capernaum, Nazareth, even Cana in Galilee. You'll be privileged to see some of those cities about which we read in the Gospels. But Emmaus, on our way. Where is Emmaus? Biblical archaeologists and historians are only guessing where it could have been. Ụfọdụ sị na ọ nọ ebe dị nwa, ndị ọzọ sị na o nwere ike ịbụ ebe dị otu a. But nobody has been able to point out exactly where Emmaus is. And that is why I tell you, it can be anywhere. Emmaus can be anywhere. So let us just take it that the two disciples were on their way from Jerusalem to somewhere else. Remember, Jerusalem, where this experience of the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ happened, was in Jerusalem. And that was where the apostles were gathered, in the upper room. Last Sunday. Last Sunday we heard about the absent Thomas, who eventually became a doubting Thomas. And I reminded you that Thomas became a doubting Thomas because he was first an absent Thomas. And once you are an absent Thomas, you will become a doubting Thomas. Once you are not with the apostles, once you are not with the worshiping community, once you are not with the believing community, you will not know what they know. You will not experience what they experience. You will not believe what they believe. And this time in Jerusalem. Receive the Holy Spirit. I have confidence in you. Forgive sins. You will not be there. Ijekuwe, ijeruwe ni boshoka. Ashwa ina azane pa. Nanki na azane University Road. Obugo no bem na agwa o. Makane inoro wabe ni inogane pa. Me ma inogane University Market Road. No na magwa no be zogi zonyozo. Because the person is missing an appointment. Even those who hurriedly fulfill what they call Sunday obligation to get about their normal business. That is not the spirit of being with the community. Anyway, that was where Thomas's problem started. He was absent. This time again, today, 2 of his disciples left Jerusalem. And they were on their way to somewhere outside Jerusalem. Cleopas. I have told you before, search the Bible, the New Testament from beginning to the end. You will not see that name. The only name that resembles it, you'll find it in John chapter 19, verse 5. Where the evangelist was enumerating those who were at the foot of the cross. He said, Mary, 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 and the wife of Clopas, not Cleopas. The wife of Clopas, Munye Clopas. It is possible, not this same Clopas, but Cleopas. Possible, Vemkar. And some have even said, no, but Clopas and Munye, Geshi Jerusalem, Galako somewhere else. Others say, no, that Cleopas and his son, whose name was Simon. These are speculations, because sometimes what confuses many of you is not what we find either in the Bible or the teaching authority of the church interpreting the Bible, but in speculations of private authors. These are speculations. If you find them helpful for your spiritual life, well and good. If they confuse you, drop them. Apostle. He could have been one of the 70 or 72. Because we know not all the disciples of Jesus. Some of them were even private disciples. Those who were admiring and following Jesus in secret. Getting the cult. But he knew what he was looking for. So we don't know the names of all the disciples. But these 2 disciples left Jerusalem, which means they had been in Jerusalem and they had been close to Jesus, because they said, Ufodo ndo tuanye. Some of our own people, the women first. But it had the interesting that they did not understand Jesus. Hamago nyobo. Merinambe Jesu gwara Peter. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 16, now I'm building my church on your faith. Because your confession of faith did not come from the human being, but from God himself. Because the way human beings understood Jesus was a prophet, a great miracle worker, a revolutionary who would save Israel, naturally, from the Romans. He had water all this while. Now, why am I saying this? Don't be surprised yourself if you have not understood who Jesus is. It takes time. It needs constant personal experience. These people were with him. They were among the inner circle. And yet, but that is not an excuse. Because Jesus spoke to them in very clear language. You are foolish people. Foolish people. Very, very foolish. And many Christians today are foolish, ignorant, stubborn. Some Christians, most Christians in fact, have built for themselves an image of Jesus and an image of the church. Once Jesus does not fit that image, they leave. Once the church does not fit that image, they leave. And that is the cause of our problems. How many people or groups have churches today? People whom you don't even know what they believe in. Yesterday, traveling from Warri to Nsukka until Mbata Onitsha, I think I saw only 2 signboards of Catholic institution or church. Right from Warri. Church, 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 right and left and left and right and right and left. One joker, you know those jokes, was making a joke and said, mention any alphabet from A to Z or A to Z, and I'll tell you a church. And he named all of them, from A Apostolic Church to Z Zoe Ministry. But what are those groups? As a matter of fact, those groupings are results of people who were disappointed, who have been disappointed that the church or Jesus is not exactly the way they expected him to be, and they left Jerusalem. Many have left Jerusalem. Where is Jerusalem? Where the apostles are. Where is Jerusalem? Where the believing community is gathered. For those of you who are not familiar with his story, if you hear the name John Henry Newman, say cardinal, an English cardinal of the 19th century. This cardinal was an Anglican scholar, a great writer and theologian as an Anglican. But his studies made him to ask himself, the church founded by Jesus Christ? And he kept following the scriptures, following history, following practice, and he arrived at a conclusion. He said, look, I don't like Catholics because I don't like their life. But one thing I cannot deny, that the one church founded by Jesus Christ is in the Catholic Church. And he left the Anglican Church and became a Catholic. If you accept this and this and this, then you draw your conclusion. It is not a question of whether you like the Pope or the Bishop or your parish priest. In a half of Jerusalem, you know the story of Okoko Aha. orute n'ore ma eri akwụsị eme mgbe akpachi na-adị na bọs mgbe ọ bụ luxury bejeje ọkụkọ ihe kerie n'ụkwụ tọọ ememe ọkụkọ shi na mgbe ọ nọ gbafta how nwaanyị chihu mkpu jee ma o jirita ọkụkọ ohe pererererere okugide ndị nọọsụ ji ikwe mienu ọkụkọ mee papapapapapapa be nwaanyị were ka gba nnukwu kiriri ọkụkọ ijekudu uwe imago mbe ijeko iji adreesị si ji fon nọmba ọ bụkwa ọnwa ma ije laa n'iyi ijekudu uwe we mbe mara ma ụsụdọ ọkwa ma ije laa n'iyi. They will deceive you, collect your money, frustrate you, satisfy some of your present needs, and you'll be more confused. Go back to Jerusalem. But in the confusion, Jesus does not leave us alone. Last Sunday, we heard how he came back 7-8 days later. He came back looking for Thomas. And Thomas was there. And Thomas moved from absent Thomas to being a present Thomas. And from doubting Thomas, he confessed, "My Lord and my God." For the first time, any human being called Jesus God, because he was present and experienced him in the body. So Jesus, as these people were talking in their confusion, he was walking with them. He asked them, "What are you talking about?" Sometimes Jesus behaves in very funny ways. Onah jogo ina chongwa. Ine ekpere ni na chongwa inumolu na asiga ni no na chapel. Kedi hi na ebe megene be na cho. Your reaction could be ina jono mogana obi maga. And that was their reaction. Are you the only man in Jerusalem? The only visitor who does not know who has been happening here? And he didn't give up. Like what? Makano chor to prepare us to understand what is happening in our lives. You know the joke of these comedians invent so many things. Oh, for now, say, you know, you are familiar with them because for the moon and magigi except comedians. Be specific. Because one man was praying to God, "I want my children to become doctors. I want 2 of my sons to become doctors. Chukwusi, I want doctor. I just want any 2 of them to become doctors." At the end, one became a native doctor and the other one conductor. Like what? Abrani bonye nkuzi. No ba juju ina aju ụmụ akwụkwọ obi na-eshi na ya amata nke he wọtara na nke he ga-awọta gị. Ihe a niile na-eme like what? Ihe a bishop kwuru n'okwu Chukwu tata ọ sara gị tefe n'ichete ọ na ịwọta adịghị te. Maka na nwere ebe m na-ejechara pastoral visit. I spend 2-3 hours explaining. Aben lagre na atagaria ihe karasi be obi ọzọ mgbe ya sị na bishop sịrị ngị na sị bishop oloshi we bịa. Like what? And they said what they understood from the events of these last days, and he called them fools. And that is what we are, fools. Not only now the foolish, hard at heart. We are hard at heart, unable to understand. And the psalmist had warned us, Psalm 95 verse 8, "If today you should hear his voice, harden not your heart." But we remain hardened of heart, hard-hearted. Paul, or Peter the son Agwai, And the second reading today. Look, you remember that the price that was paid to redeem you, ransom you, igofute. To ransom, bo igote ihe madus na ya nwe. To buy you back from the useless type of life you inherited from your ancestors. It was a very precious price, not in silver, not in gold, because silver and the gold, they decay, they lose their worth over time. Jesus said, was it not necessary that the Christ should first suffer? Ask yourself, was it really necessary? Why did Jesus have to suffer? Peter says, so that you know that the sin that was committed and the sin you are committing is very serious matter. And the price paid to redeem you, not the precious blood of the only begotten Son of God. Without that suffering, without that blood, you would not have realized how serious sin is. And you will not have realized how useless the useless way of life that you inherited from your ancestors. You have been redeemed, though, and not with money that anybody can afford, but with a price that no other person can pay. And as he was talking to them, their heart was warming. Their heart was warming. Their heart was warming. Now I want to assure you, you child of God, how many times in your life you now know in a situation where you feel like walking away? You just feel like going away from others. You prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for a child. And eventually that child comes and becomes a source of pain and suffering for you. You prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for somebody with whom you spend the rest of your life. A husband, a wife. And this woman, bata begi, no respect, mocking you because you are poor, mocking you because you don't satisfy her needs, whether with regard to money or in the other room, but always mocking you. And you just say, and you just want to walk away. Or your husband, all the boys say, you thought this was the end of your loneliness, only for you to come into this man's house and he turns you into a slave, beating, abusing, sex machine, and no respect, and you just want to stand up and walk away. Or a sickness. Issue logunka, ga logunka, ishinka, ganka, ishinka, as no gabtesi jigdi India. Me wege India. You borrow money or you sell your property, India later you get worse. These things happen on our journey. And as I told you, Emmaus can be anywhere. It can be a journey from the hospital or to the hospital, from the church or to the church, from the office or to the office, anywhere. And you are downcast, and you are sad, and you are confused, you are desperate, and he comes. It's not an easy road We are traveling to heaven, for many are the towns on the way. Is not an easy road, but the Savior is with us. His presence gives us joy every day. No, no, is not an easy road. No, no, is not an easy road. But Jesus walks beside me and brightens the journey and lights every heavy load. Even today, He's walking beside you. But you don't see Him, you don't realize Him, because your heart is closed and hardened. And once He comes, He becomes part of your story, part of your worry, part of your experience. And He will remind you how foolish you are by not knowing He is the one. And later, when you wake up, you will say, I felt something was happening. I felt something was happening. Now what I want to tell you is that you will experience Him today. You will encounter Him today anywhere you are. Because He's walking with you and beside you every time. But you have to be prepared to recognize His presence. And once you recognize His presence, your life is transformed. The situation does not change, but your attitude completely changes. I told this story in one of the cathedraticums. I'll repeat it to you. Onwere one man na-arụ ụlọ n'Ishibe Nnam. I was about 7-8 years when this thing happened. But it remains in my mind as if it happened yesterday. Oh, come out, lawyer, bang bang. Banda madu siri anaga baranku ako here. Hunegbero log adego inaje gbutue. Munyi bia ovutuoye no werike ogabo lobo jada kwash. Osna obezuku. Achọgodo eji egbo nkwụ. Ma igbuko nkwụ ma ọ bụ osisi nọkwuru ụlọ. Na-eli ya ụdọ, ọkwa eziokwu. Elie ya ụdọ ụmụ ego ala segide. A na-egbu ya na-ese ya, na-egbu ya na-ese ya, na-egbu ya na-ese. Nkwụ eme ka bụ ụdọ dọbụrụ. Ụdọ dọbụrụ nkwụ ya azụ. Rute n'echiche kwụrụ. Now the problem was, what do we do? Mbo do dobra n'aka erughị. Onye na-egbo nkwụ ha bụ Thomas o mere baptizim ma ọ gana ma gọma. Sukpo ya agbọ. Ekpota agbọ asị ije agbọ emegin. Ọkọ agbọ na ile nkwụ. Thomas ijekowen ọgbatute mkpọrọ ọgba n'aka wotie n'ọnụ si na ya na-ayega. Mna ma ayega. Oworo nkwụ kako nkwụ kekwe nyiruo nkwụ kedo eriri mgbe ọ kedorie nyidete egbutuo nkwụ. I know you'll be clapping. Na the man gwọrọ toshwe. It is possible the man, a very experienced man, had assessed what was happening, but he needed extra confidence. Manihem na konu na akụkọ a. But na goma nende na agwọgwụ ka anyị akụbu. Nwa Chineke gna aga ega. Onye ọbụla riri ahụ nke nwa nke mmadụ na onye ọbụla hụrụ ọbara ya, onye ahụ ga-ebi n'ime mmegene mbiri n'ime ya. Ị na-atụ egwu. What are you afraid of? And go and see all these governors and common commissioners even, and without bodyguard. Governor Gakon Mobu President. President anyị gbali na Abuja na abịa je Enugu. Plane na-ehwa na ga Dakota na Enugu ọzọ bịa kpola. Egwu. They are afraid, and all of them need obi. But God has assigned a personal guardian angel to you, more powerful than all Satans, all demons. How many times do you pray to him? Angeline Kechukwu, onye nche nke m, onye Chukwu rara m tinye n'aka ya, biko nye m ife, chebe m, dube m na-achị m. O mmụọ m fụrụ n'anya, nọnyere m oge niile, na-edu m, na-eche m nche. Apart from that, Jesus is in you because you receive him at the altar. Why are you afraid? Immediately these people recognized that Jesus was with them. That stranger, wasn't it what they told him? And he entered with them. But once they recognized what had happened in their life, they stood up that very moment and went back where? To Jerusalem, where the apostles are.
Ogini kiji hareme imali nipe kamalite netitu muchuku Ọtụtụ mgbe gị na n'okwu Chukwu ogini kiji hareme imali nipe kamalite netitu muchuku Ọtụtụ mgbe gị na n'okwu Chukwu ogini kiji hareme